Hello and welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. We're sitting here in South Florida talking to Florida Congressman and retired Army Colonel Allen West. Congressman, great to be with you today.
Always good to be with you, John.
There are new reports that Iran recently test-fired missiles over the Strait of Hormuz. Those missiles are intended to sink warships. Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad continues to provoke Israel, continues to provoke the United States. And he said he believes that war could be imminent with Israel. Do you believe that there is some sort of military action imminent?
I think you have to have a military action because weakness is provocative. And in that part of the world where I spent about almost 40 months in combat zones, they only understand strength and might. And when you continue to see the type of reticent response that you see coming out of our administration when they know that we're talking about sequestration, which is going to take our Navy down to a World War I level, take our ground forces down to World War II level, that's an enticement to them. And so I think you see what is happening right now is an emboldening of our enemies and adversaries, and we're confusing and seemingly abandoning our allies.
The White House confirmed that the president has no bilateral meetings scheduled for any world leaders while he's in New York for the UN General Assembly, yet he is appearing on television shows like The View. What are your thoughts?
It's amazing to me when you think about what happened on 9/11 just a few weeks ago to about the next 10 days. You had sovereign U.S. territory, which is what an embassy and a consulate is, attacked, our flag torn down, the radical Islamic flag raised. We had an ambassador that was killed. We had a fighter squadron commander killed in Afghanistan. We had 6 Harrier jets destroyed, 2 were damaged, and the president goes off to Las Vegas. The president goes and parties with Jay-Z and Beyonce. He goes on David Letterman. Now is the time when you should be showing leadership. Now is the time when you should be talking to world leaders and telling them how that you're going to stand up and you're going to confront this blatant attack. This is an act of war against our country. You should not be sending $70,000 to Pakistan to apologize, nor putting our First Amendment rights on the chopping block. So I'm very concerned about the response that you see coming out of the White House. I'm very concerned that you would send out the UN ambassador to say that this was all because of a video, which most of us knew behind the scene that was not the case, and now the entire country knows.
What do you think now that the White House and the State Department have changed course? They said it was the video at first, now they confirmed that it was a coordinated terror attack?
Well, if you tell the truth in the beginning, you don't have to go back and backtrack. I think that
So you think they were misleading the public from the beginning?
Oh, it's absolutely they were misleading the public. 11 days before this happened, the Egyptian intelligence put out a warning letter about some problems there at the embassy. It was printed in Jerusalem Post on the day of 9/11. The consulate there in Benghazi had been attacked, I believe, 5 or 6 times. We knew that Ansar al-Sharia was a very concerning entity and group aligned with Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb. The head of Ansar al-Sharia was released from Guantanamo Bay in 2007. So just add up all the pieces.
Secretary of State Clinton is meeting with Mohammed Morsi, the leader of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, the president of Egypt. Do you expect her to tell him that our financial aid for Egypt is in jeopardy right now?
I would expect the president to tell President Morsi that. I would expect the president, who is the commander-in-chief, to stand up and do that and not send out the Secretary of State to do that. And I think that we should cut off that aid to Egypt. I think that we should relook the aid that we're sending to Libya. We have to have conditions on these things. We should look at what we're doing in Yemen. We should look at what is going on in Sudan, all of these places, Pakistan, and we need to take a very hard stance. The fact that you have a Pakistani minister that is offering up $100,000 on a hit for this guy that did this little Monty Python, esque video.
I think that's being nice.
Yeah, I'm being nice, but it's insane. We need the president to stand up. Foreign policy is not just about killing one person, Osama bin Laden. Foreign policy is about the relationships that you have with other leaders. Those that are your friends and those that are not your friends.
Let's focus on the sequestration, which you talked about. The House passed a bill, your bill, that required the president to state his priorities for what should be cut, when it should be cut.
Absolutely.
Are you satisfied with the president's response?
No, absolutely not. And first and foremost, we should not get to this point. The president said in his nomination speech at the Democratic Convention that he wanted to have the greatest and the strongest military in the world. where his actions speak against that. We know that the thing called sequestration came out of the Obama administration. The super committee was an idea of Harry Reid, and this is where it has gotten us. And if you're the commander-in-chief, you should not want to see 200,000 men and women put onto the streets. Our ground forces going down to these World War II levels, the Navy going down to World War I levels, especially in light of what you've seen happen over the last 2 weeks.
Aside from Republicans winning the Senate and Governor Romney getting elected, is there any way to avoid the sequestration at this point?
I think that you have to have that happen. I think that if we are able to win the White House, win the Senate, and expand our majority in the House on November the 6th, that gives us a little bit of a moral high ground going into what is called a lame duck session to really start working on tax reform to make sure that we don't head toward that fiscal cliff, and sequestration is a part of that.
After Governor Romney, that tape was released where he made the comments about the 47% of Americans that don't pay income tax, are reliant on government subsidies and entitlements. You've talked about the unsustainable nature of our entitlement system in this country. What do you think is the first most important step to take to reforming the entitlement culture in this country?
I think the most important thing is to expand the opportunity society and not the dependent society. You know, what we're doing here today with the Hiring Our Heroes jobs fair is exactly what I said. Government does not create jobs. Government creates the opportunities by which job creators can provide those employment opportunities. So, you know, Alexis de Tocqueville talked about this 170 years ago in Democracy in America. If we continue to grow a class of individuals that realizes that they can vote their own largesse from the public treasury by promoting the people that promises them the most benefits, this country will collapse. Our fiscal policy will collapse, and that's the road we're heading down. When you look at sequestration, for example, we're talking about 60% of budget cuts going against 19.6% of our budget. 62% of the federal government's budget is net interest on the debt, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. We've got to protect those programs and systems. We have to reform them and make sure that they continue on. Medicare is bankrupt in 2024, 9 years after that, Social Security. We cannot continue to have a class where, you know, we're promoting people going on food stamps. The fact that we've had almost 9.4 million Americans go into poverty in just the last 3.5 years, that's unconscionable. That's a 46-year increase. 46% increase in food stamp recipients. I mean, a federal government that's using taxpayer money to run radio and TV ads for people to go on food stamps, that's creating a dependent society and not an opportunity society.
Last question for you. I want to talk about your current race a little bit. You're running against Democrat Patrick Murphy.
I'm not running against anybody. There's a name on the ballot. And you know, the level of questions that you're asking me, you have never heard him say anything about any of the prevailing issues. So this is the emptiest of empty suits.
So you're not concerned at all. I was going to ask you about, and this is a poll from the DCCC that showed this race as a dead heat, and I wanted to mention that the Democrats have made you one of their top targets in this election cycle. I wanted to ask you about your level of confidence heading into the election.
Well, you don't see me shaking.
I do want to mention that we're here at a Hiring Heroes job fair. I know this is a personal issue for you. Yes. I want to thank you for taking some time out of this job fair to talk to us today.
Appreciate
it's always a pleasure.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.